Okay, guys, some more examples on factoring by grouping when you have more than 3 terms. So you're using the grouping when there's multiple terms. So in this case, it's more than 3 terms, so you can't use Big Star or AC method or any of the other factoring methods. So grouping works really well when you have more than 3 terms. We are going to take our first set and we are going to first, number one step, always look for a GCF. Cannot reiterate enough. Your number one step is to always look for a GCF. So GCF, yes or no. So in this case, I have a 4, a 6, a 6, and a 9. If that 9 wasn't there, then I probably could pull out a 2, but there is a 9, so I can't. So you're going to look at your letters, X, X, X. There's not a variable at the end. So that means I can't pull out an X all the way through either. So in this case, there's no GCF. So we're going to keep rocking and rolling. Next step, we're going to group the 4 terms. So this guy's going to go here, and then we're going to keep that negative in there. So we're going to hold on to those as 2 separate. So there's going to be a plus, an imaginary plus in the middle. Now, after we've grouped them, we're going to look for GCF again. Is there a GCF in each binomial? So remember, one in the front is a binomial, and the one in the back is, so we have a binomial and a binomial. So we're going to look at them separately. So because this one is 4x cubed minus 6x squared, we're going to see what they have in common. So 4 and 6 both have a 2 in common for sure. And they both have x's. So there's 3 x's here and 2 x's here. So there's at least 2. So take out 2 x's. And 2 times what gives me 4? It's going to be 2. And then if I take 2 x's out, I'm going to be left with 1x. And 2 times what gives me a negative 6 would be a negative 3. And if I take out 2 x's and there was only 2 x's, we're done. And then we look at our next one. So that's at negative 6x plus 9. We're looking to see what these two numbers have in common. I would say a positive 3, because remember, this is going to be a plus. Let's plot a 3. But we already know that this is negative in the front, and we know this parentheses needs to be positive in the front. So you can pull out a 3 and then address the negatives later, or pull out a negative now and switch the sign. So let's go ahead and pull out a negative now, make it a little easier. There's not an x in the second term, so we're not going to pull out an x. So that negative 3 times what gives me negative 6, positive 2. And there's still that x. So that's good. It's looking good for our first set of parentheses. And then negative 3 times what gives me positive 9? Well, 3 times 3 gives me 9. And since that's negative, I need this one to be negative as well. So now that we've pulled out our GCFs, you want to check and make sure, do the parentheses match? And if you'd pulled out a positive 3, then they wouldn't match. And that's when you would have had to go back and pull out a negative 1 as well. So kind of thinking like our hockey stick method, you can break it down into multiple steps, or you can take care of it up front if you need to. Again, when you look at 1, you know this is what you're shooting for in the second set of parentheses. That second binomial needs to match. So we're going to take our 2 terms sitting on the outside. So plus a negative 3 or minus 3. And then our parentheses match, so 2x minus 3. And we have factored by grouping. And then I highly recommend, if you have the space and time, to multiply those back together to prove to yourself that where you just came from is where you ended up and all the things are right. All right, so that's example number 1. Let's do another one. Okay, so we got 4 terms again. We're going to group our first 2 and our second 2. So first, you're going to look for GCF. 7 let me know there wasn't going to be a GCF, because unless 7 went all the way through, 7's a prime number. So that's it. So GCF in this case, again, is a no. We're going to group into binomials, so 2 pairs. Now we're going to look for GCF again. I told you GCF is life. So 7c squared plus cdf. 7, 1. So numerically, there's nothing they could pull out. They do both have a c. This one has 2 and this one has 1. So we can only pull out 1. So c times what gives me 7c squared? It's going to be 7c. And then c out of cd is going to leave me with a d. Now I'm going to look at my second set. I have a 14 and a 2. 2 is going to be the largest number I can pull out, and then c and d. So no common factors as far as exponents are concerned. 2 times what gives me 14? That's going to be 7. And there's still that c left over because we didn't pull one out. And then again, remember, kind of cheating, but this side has to match this side. And you want to go ahead and try it out because you could have messed up on the first one too. And then 2 times what gives me 2d? And that's going to be just d, because 2 times 1 gives me 2. And then we have the d. And again, now we're going to check our parentheses. Do the parentheses match? And in this case, they do, so we know we did it right. We're going to take our first term that we pulled out in our second GCF. We're going to combine those to be our first factor. And then our second factor is 7c plus d. And again, we can multiply these together. You can FOIL them or box, whatever works for you. So 7c squared, c times d, cd, looking good so far as to the one in the top. Then 2 times 7c is going to give me 14c. And then 2 times d gives me 2d.